All right, good evening. Did that work? Yeah. So my name's Tor. Welcome everybody, and thanks for coming out for this edition of the Sebastopol Carbon Conversations. Tonight we're going to hear a couple of stories about road trips, because that's a common thing about range anxiety driving electric, and then a bunch of other related issues about infrastructure and so on. And then also sort of the idea that what we can do here to accelerate this as a measure. Just a little bit of background if you haven't been here before. Carbon Conversations is something that I started with my wife. That's Dina back there. And so we started two things. One was the Sebastopol Carbon Conversations with the idea that I've been to so many climate meetings, and as Greta Thunberg says, what's the number one thing you can do is get more informed. So let's put the topics out there, and particularly solutions, and then talk about it and see what we can do locally. Also, we were working with a group of teachers in the area, we're calling it Teach Climate, just sharing ideas how they can integrate climate change and climate literacy into their classrooms. We're here at the Grange. We're Grangers. There's anybody else here at Granger? Peter? Yes. Great place. Come on back for other events. We have a potluck last Tuesday of the month. It's open and available to anyone. Solar Schoolhouse is there. There's a website. That's sort of our main program under Rahu's, the nonprofit we run. And so you're wondering why Sebastopol Carbon Conversations on Solar Schoolhouse. It's the website I know how to manage, so that's why it's there for right now. And then down the lower right, I want to point out Sebastopol Climate Action Group, which is a number of us here that have been started last spring, I think summer or spring. The idea of helping pass a climate emergency resolution here in Sebastopol, and that's happened in December. And now we're in this phase of figuring out what the actions are. So there's an application out for folks that might want to participate on the city's climate action subcommittee, I think it is. So there's a flyer there at the back table if you're interested in that and learning more. So those are all those ones. And just a little bit of rehash. We've done a number of carbon conversations starting in September, starting with Project Drawdown, which is if you haven't seen it, it's the 80 existing solutions that this group, Project Drawdown, has analyzed as to how they can reduce greenhouse gases. So it's a great reference, and we're using it to create subsequent carbon conversations. These, there's videos of these online too, or it'll be shortly. I have to link to that. But a number of different things we've been talking about, including the one in November we called Climate Readiness, which is another way of saving emergency preparedness for our area after the fire, power outage, and evacuations, and making that connection to the fires being partially responsible for climate change. So, there. And then coming up, just a shout out, into April will be one on planting trees. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of activities about sequestering carbon, and that's one way to do that. We'll have an Earth Day event at Summerfield with Mary DeMacher. She's the author of The Parent's Guide to Climate Revolution. She's a great speaker, inspirational. She was here in the fall, coming back. And then in May, Amira Diamond from Women's Earth Alliance will be talking about how empowering women has a greenhouse gas component. And then again in June, we'll revisit climate readiness. So that's past and coming up. And I think the whole general idea of why we do this is to help accelerate some of these solutions in our local community. So each one of these topics they're deep. There's a lot of aspects to it, and it's sort of figuring out if there's some interest among the audience to sort of pursuing them further, then it's a kind of figuring out how to do that. We don't have that mapped out perfectly, but it's the idea behind all this. So I just want to point out the resources we have here for sale. The Murray's book, it's 100 chapters, 100 things you can do. And each chapter has small, medium, and large activity things you can do depending on your time and interest, which is a real practical guide. And this really should be called the People's Guide to Climate Revolution, because it's really for everybody trying to answer that question, what can I do? So consider that. Greta's book is a compilation of her speeches up and through September last fall, through the UN Climate Summit. She's very direct, as you know, and very inspirational. Then Drawdown, whether you get a copy of the book or drawdown.org is also online. It's a good resource to come back to and sort of connect all these different actions that sometimes seem like, why are they connected? It helps ties things together. So, and any purchases help support Carbon Conversations. So, looking at electric cars, this is from Drawdown's website. There's a lot of tech talk here, but this is a worldwide model, and it's talking about the amount of CO2 potential for reduction, how much it'll cost to implement, and then some of the savings that we'll can achieve. And I won't go too much into trying to explain all that any deeper than it is right now, but I encourage you to take a look at Drawdown to dig in a little bit deeper into that. With each section they have online or in the book, there's a technical page that talks about how they modeled it and what assumptions they went into it. And then just sharing that they just posted this a few days ago. It's the 2020 Drawdown Review with 10 key insights. And one of the key insights, I was thumbing through it just the other day. It's free, you can download it, it's just a PDF right now. Which, by the way, we will share this, but feel free to take notes if you want. Or not, or just relax and I'll share it with you. One of the key insights was there's no one silver bullet that's going to solve this problem. It's really looking at all the solutions, because there's so many interconnections, and so it's remembering that we can't just do one thing to get us out of this. So anyway, I would encourage you to take a look at that and the 10 key insights that they've come up with. And then just by way of saying that there are a lot of other transportation-related solutions that are in Drawdown. So you see some of the posters lined up around. We're not going to talk about any of those tonight, but I wanted to not give a nod to them, that each of them are part of the solution and are things that we could explore further going down the line. So bicycle infrastructure, carpooling. And some of these could be combined with electric cars, because even if we changed out all the existing cars for electric cars, we still have a lot of traffic. So carpooling should be explored as well. Anyway, so there's a lot of connections between all of these things. So it's kind of a broad bullets on what we're going to share today. Just recalling back when I was hesitant to buy an electric car, there was that range anxiety thing that people think about. I wasn't going to run out, So we thought we'd share a few road trip stories, which, I heard a story from Alan Sullivan a few years ago who drove around the world in his Tesla, and I was like, oh, okay, you can do this. So we're going to share a little bit about that, and then also what vehicles are available, and what are the costs, and then also some infrastructure discussion about chargers, both at different speeds, high-speed chargers, and so forth. And then this idea of using the battery in your car to power your home, vehicle to home. So it's a bidirectional relationship between your car and your home. Not only are you charging your car, but if the power goes out, you can power your house. In the case of a blackout, which it's all in everybody's mind here, so we'll touch upon that a little bit later. And then sort of these ideas, I'll share a couple of innovative electric car programs that will be done in Sacramento, and also we'll finish up with a discussion about what can we do here and any other questions you guys might have on your mind. So, while we switch over to Cecilia's presentation, take a minute and say hello to your neighbor, all right?
My name is Cecelia Sullivan, and I went on a road trip in an EV across the United States and Canada. So let's do a little survey. How many of y'all have gone on a road trip? A bunch of you. How about in an EV? Okay. All right, so a few of you have done it. So this is my trip. Last year in the summer, I spent about 33 days, visited about 33 friends, went through 35 states and provinces, and I visited 17 superchargers. Oh, I forgot to say, my vehicle was a Tesla, so I'll be talking about my experience from that perspective, although I'll try to include some other details. It's a Model 3. So I went almost 12,000 miles, and I used over 2.8 megawatt hours of electricity, which is quite a bit. To give you a little perspective, that's about the amount used in 22 seconds in the city of New York back in 2012, if my math is correct. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my planning, what I did to plan for my trip. So the first thing I wanted to do was determine my destination and my route. So for the question of where I'm going, I reached out on Facebook to my friends to see who wanted to see me. And I got some responses all across the country and like one up in Canada as well. So after that, I figured out what my route was going to be. So I figured out the most efficient route to go from all my different friends all across the country. And then after doing that, I looked around to see if there were any other interesting places that I might want to visit, and I added those to my route. My next step was to figure out my driving time and where I was going to be stopping. So my first question was how far I was going to drive per day. I figured I could, based on my experience with driving my car previously, I could maybe do 12 hours a day, or about 1,000 miles, which is a lot. But making use of the driver assistance feature, autopilot on my car, made that a lot easier. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to do the trip that I did. And then I'd figure out what locations I would be spending the night because I'm gone for a month, I need to stay somewhere. So I figured I would, I'm visiting friends, I would stay with them, and also I would stay in my car for a little bit, and also in one instance actually stayed at a campground. Right, so the tools that I used for planning my trip. I used a better route planner or a better route planner. That's for planning my route, the directions I was going to take through the country and where I was going to be charging. That was just to get an idea of what the cost would be and how long it was going to take. I use RV Parky. This is an app for people who have RVs. It allowed me to find places to park overnight, maybe with some charging. And also I use PlugShare for finding local charging. And then I had a spreadsheet to track all the places that I was going to be going. So a Better Route Planner, if you haven't used it, it is a really cool tool that allows you to do planning based on the profile of your car. So you can select your car model and it'll fill in your battery details, its range, and how much energy it uses. So you can get a pretty good idea of how long it would take to do the trip, with charging included. It'll give you timetables for how long it's going to take to get to your different destinations, how long you need to charge, how much you need to charge. You can also save plans, so you can break up your trip into little bite-sized pieces and switch between them as needed. So this tool is really good for doing that long-distance planning. I use the website, but it also has an app. And so RV Parky, this allowed me to look at different sites across the United States, and I think in Canada too. And I could search for places that had restrooms or showers or charging, which is the main reason I got this app. You can filter by those criteria. I use an app, but it also has a website. And PlugShare. So this is the app that I use for finding charging when I was at a location. So if you have an EV now, you've probably made use of this app. You can filter by the different charger types that are available. You'll know which one your car has, and you'll filter for that so you don't wind up going to a charging station that doesn't support the kind of car that you use. You filter by networks, just like we have the Shell gas station or Chevron gas station. If you have a preferred network, you can look for those. You can use it for long distance planning, although I've not really used it for that. I mostly used it for local charging. And I use an app, although it also has a website. And then the spreadsheet, most of you probably used a spreadsheet. I used it to track all my stops so I knew where I was going, and I could do a more detailed plan of how long I was going to be spending at each location. I also had a list of all the people I was going to be seeing so that I made sure I didn't skip people. I also had a checklist of all the things I was going to take, which was helpful except for when I couldn't find the thing I wanted to take, so yeah. You can also log your data if you're one of those people who really likes to keep track of all those little details, like how much you drive, how much energy you use, etc. And of course there are apps and websites for this.
And did you log all that data?
I did not, because I just went off what my car logged, and I just used that for reference. All right, so charging on the road. This is me in Canada. You can tell because there's a moose on the sign. This is at a supercharging site. Very at the far end, there is another charging station over there. Okay, so just like gas vehicles or internal combustion vehicles have different standards for fueling, so do electric vehicles. So you have gasoline, you have diesel, E85. You'll know what kind of fuel your vehicle uses, and you'll do similarly with your electric vehicle. So for DC fast charging, there are 3 different standards. We have the Tesla Supercharger. As a Tesla user, this is the connector that I used. We also have Chatamo. This is primarily used on Japanese vehicles. The Leaf is one that you would find this connector on. And then there's the CCS connector. This is going to be on most other cars that are not Tesla or a Leaf. And so that was for DC fast charging. We also have level 2 charging, which is a little bit slower. This is kind that you would normally do at your home. We have the J1772 connector, and that's If you look at the CCS connector, the top part is going to be the J1772 component. So the CCS is just an extension of the J1772 connector. And then the Tesla connector is the same as the supercharger connector. Okay, so charging logistics. So DC fast charging is going to be measured in minutes. So you'll want to use that when you're doing your long distance road tripping. That'll allow you to do your trip as quickly as possible. AC level 2 charging is going to be measured in hours. So if your car supports DC fast charging, you'll definitely want to prioritize that. If your car does not, your trip planning will be more about spending time, planning to spend time at a location to charge. And you can look at these again via the app or your car's navigation. And in my Tesla, I can just put in my route and it'll charge out my route and add charging stops to it as well. And again, I'm going to keep plugging a better route planner because it is really awesome for doing this planning. You only want to charge just enough to get to your next charger. I did hear a story about someone who was charging up to like 100% or their regular charge level, and it was taking them a very long time just to do not very long trips. The reason for that is that as your car gets fuller, the charge rate gets lower, so it takes more time if you're charging longer than you need to. And a good rule is to charge enough to get to your next stop with 10 to 20% remaining. That allows you to travel more quickly. You can you'll have like a little bit of buffer so that if you do need to like make a detour or if that charging station isn't working, you'll have like a little bit to like continue on elsewhere. And when you're charging, you're not wasting time. This is time that you're going to the restroom and you have time for a meal break. I stopped every 2 to 3 hours. My car could go a little longer than that, but my bladder can't. Right, so charging costs. I'm not going to get into exact dollar amounts for this, but just to help you know how to like figure out what your cost might be when you're going on a trip. So the charging networks, they do have different rates, so you can look at their materials or websites or the apps that will tell you what their rates are. A better rate planner, if you do plan a route, a better route planner will give you a cost when you need to plow your route, and that can be helpful for knowing how much your trip is going to cost. You can also do calculations based on your car's efficiency. Cars will give efficiency either in watt-hours per mile or miles per kilowatt hour. And there are a couple of formulas. I'm not going to get into that, but you can look at these slides later if you're interested in seeing that. So some chargers will charge by the minute rather than by the kilowatt hour, like your utility does. This is because some states require that only utilities can charge by the kilowatt hour. And the reason it's harder to calculate is because cars have different charging rates, and also as your car gets fuller, the charge rate goes down, so you're getting more energy at first, but then it's less as your car gets more full. So that's another reason not to charge as high as you can on some chargers. Okay, charging at destinations. So once you've gotten to like a place where you are wanting to get to and you're going to spend a little time there, you're going to want to keep your car charged. So the options for doing that kind of charging are going to be public charging stations, which I've talked a bit about, campgrounds, and private homes. If your friend has like an electrical outlet and doesn't mind sharing electricity. So the equipment I took with me on my trip, I took my portable EVSE for Teslas. That's called the mobile connector. And it supports having adapters so you can change the plug out so you can connect to different kinds of outlets. I also had an outdoor extension cord, and I have my J1772 adapter, and this is only a Tesla thing. All the other cars will be using the J1772 directly. But for Teslas, this allows them to use other public charging stations. I also had a plug that allows me to adapt my native charge connectors outlet or plug. But when you're doing that kind of conversion, your EVSE or your car doesn't know exactly how much it should be charging at, so you'll want to make sure that you know what your max amperage you should be charging at. And that's going to be only 80% of the outlet rating. And this is to make sure that you are not causing any like overheating of wiring, which would be a safety hazard, and you're not tripping breakers. This isn't something that you really have to worry about unless you're really trying to connect to something that you haven't already like, that's not like already set up to work with your equipment.
Question? So, is this all 220 in terms of charging at someone's house, or is it 110 as well?
It's 120 or 240.
Yeah.
All right, so public charging stations, I use the FlexShare app to find them. And having an app that works with the network is really helpful, so you don't have to show up there and then have to figure out like to download the app and wait for that to download, or have to call and give a credit card number. Some networks do allow you to charge on or use your account on one network to charge on other networks. And also, some of these locations are free. Here I am, I'm in Maryland, and there's a bunch of cars that charge there regularly, and I was able to get a little electricity while I was staying with a friend who I wasn't able to charge at their house. So campground charging. So this is like one of those cases where I was talking about where you want to know like what your charge rate is because of, I was using a special adapter. So I used RV Parky to find the campground. And I recommend that you get a reservation because you want to make sure that, especially if you're traveling a great distance, you want to make sure you're able to charge once you get there. Having a reservation allows you to make sure that you get a site with electricity. And you'll need to have your EVSE, portable EVSE with you. So there are two kinds of outlets you can find. There's a 50 amp and a 30 amp. The 50 amp is a NEMA 1450, and that's going to be the 240 volts, and you can charge up to 40 amps if your equipment supports that. That will give you a charge like overnight. This is the same kind of connector that you might have at your house. The 30 amp connector, the NEMA TT30, is only 120 volts, and you can charge up to 24 amps. This will take a couple of days of continuous charging to get your car up to the normal level that you might charge to. I used an adapter for this. It was the TT30 to the NEMA 1450 adapter. Now they are support different amperage rates. So and because the car wasn't able to tell automatically what it should charge at, I had to make sure that my car didn't charge more than 24 amps. And the adapter I got, had to make sure it was an EV compatible adapter because the adapters for RVs use different wiring setups. All right, charging at friends' homes. This is not too out there. I used an extension cord. It was an outside extension cord. Adapters that are handy for your EVSE. Of course, they most come with the NEMA 515. That's your regular household outlet. You can also use the NEMA 520, which will charge a little bit faster. NEMA 1030 and the NEMA 1430. Those are going to be your dryer outlets. And those are going to be a little bit bigger than your regular household outlets.
And those are 240?
Yes, the NEMA 1030 and 1430 are 240.
Where do you get those adapters?
If your car's EVSE supports it, you can get it from the manufacturer if they have like the adapter, or you can also get them at various EVSE hardware websites. I think EVSE Adapters might be a website where you can get that. All right, so my takeaways. Going on a road trip is a great way to see the country. You're going to see quite a bit of it. But I drove if you averaged out how far I drove over the entire time, it would be about 400 miles a day, which doesn't leave a lot of time to do and see things. But I didn't drive every day, so my actual average is that. If I were to do this again, I would spend more time to travel the same distance so that I have like a little bit more leeway to do different things. Or I just travel a shorter distance so that way I can, if I see something that's interesting, I'd have time to stop and do it. Although I did bring a bunch of adapters, I didn't use all of them. So you don't need to have all of the adapters under the sun in order to go out there and do these things. Also, this is a little silly, but I found that buying food at every charging stop added up. I know I drive a Tesla, but I'm not made of money, so I would probably keep a better eye on that. And I would do it again. It was a really great experience. I got to learn so much about myself and what I wanted to do more in life. And one of those things is, going out there and spending more time out on the road. Do you have any questions? Yes.
I don't have any meat, so when you recharge, roughly, can you relate how much it costs to recharge as compared to filling up your car with gas?
Let's see. It's like half at the most, like half the cost. I think my per mile is like 4 cents using PG&E's overnight rates.
Thank you.
Yes.
Your extension cord, was that just rated for 240 or? did you
My-
use it?
My extension cord is for like the 120 outlet, so it was just I think it was like an 1850 watt cord. I think that was the rating. It's that you want a cord that can handle more current because it's going to be doing that continuously, and also when it's in the sun, it's going to get hot. So if it's rated for higher currents, it's not going to slow down, and it's not going to potentially cause a fire or something.
So tell me again, which one did you use?
Extension cords are rated by current, not by.
Oh, by current.
By voltage.
I'm confused about these adapters. My car came with a 120 charger. Can I use one of these adapters with it and actually charge up to 240?
It depends. If it has a detachable cable, you could. If not, you would need to get another EVSE, portable EVSE adapter that would actually allow you to connect at a higher rate.
Oh, that's still confusing.
I'll just, so this is a 110 charger,
Yeah,
smaller,
yeah.
with the one, was it 1772 plug. And then this is a level 2 or 220 volt charger with, if you can plug it into your dryer
Yeah.
or stove or whatever.
But Tart, on the new Leafs, when you get I could pull it out of my car, it gives you both the connection for 110 and for 220. And it's about the size of the other one, but the 220 is a very high current, and it's a lower current rate.
So,
Because it has to do with the size of the wire. The
Yes.
national code says, by the way, using the extension cord, you can use the extension cord, but they can't give you a cord longer than 25 feet by code. So that's why all of our cords are so short.
So where do the adapters come in? Now you got two different chargers, that's cool, but where's this adapter come
well,
in? That's where I'm confused.
okay, we'll come back to that. One more question, and then we'll.
So, when you go to the east, a lot of the electricity is generated by coal plants. Does any of the apps tell you kind of what your greenhouse emissions are if you are in different areas? Because your electricity will be less or more clean where you are.
The apps that I've used, I haven't seen that, but I know that you can look up what the electricity tends to be by state. There's a government website that lets you do that.
That's a project.
Yeah.
The Union of Concerned Scientists has a great cradle-to-grave analysis that breaks it down by regions, so that might be helpful.
What's it called?
The Union of Concerned Scientists, they have a cradle-to-grave EVs, and they break it down by regions, based on the electricity mix.
So let's give Cecelia a big hand for right now. And hang on 1 second.
Yeah,
And if you're set up for 120, but the next one to 20, and you're doing something for 240, you're in trouble. So if
you're
you're
not
not
going
going
to step where after you get 240, you can use what's current. It's the amount of power.
okay, so it's not a heat.
So a lot of technical questions, yes. So I'm going to share a little bit about, that was a Tesla story, and this is with the Bolt, the Chevy Bolt. So a little bit of background. We first, we're a family that's always bought used cars and drove them till they're finished, right? So buying a new car was something new. We have solar on our home. I wanted to use some of that excess to put into a vehicle. So we first got a Ford C-Max Energy that's a plug-in hybrid that had 20 miles electric and then a gas engine to keep you going. And so that helped us use some of our solar credits and got us around for most of what we do. We work at home, so it's not a lot of commuting. But we could also take a road trip. And then at the end of that lease period was just when the Bolt was coming out. So we turned in the Ford C-Max and walked next door and got the Bolt, which was great. And also I mentioned I saw Alan's presentation going around the world. Well, that's a story, he goes, oh, it was real easy driving across the country. It was like the supercharger network's spaced very evenly. It's, you don't have to even think about it. It's great. I'm like, oh, okay. But none of the other cars can use the Tesla supercharger network. Little detail, right? So we turned it in. We installed a level 2 charger, this 220 volt charger at home with the Sonoma Clean Power incentive. And then we started to take road trip adventures, we call them. And so my first trip was to Sacramento, and I had something to do up in SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, and it's a little over 200 miles round trip, and I made it there and back without, very cautious driving, making sure I was because I was still a novice with public chargers and such. But we made it there and back without needing a charge. And then subsequently, we have daughters that live in Portland, and we're going to go visit them. So over the last 2.5 years, I'm just going to give you a couple snapshots of some of the experiences of going back and forth over the last, and some of the apps and things that we've experienced. I'll say right now, it's been an adventure. And I will say this, my wife told me, she says, I worry about a lot of things, but I don't worry about running out of electricity. It's like if we figure it out, it's sort of a little bit of work, but you're figuring things out, so it's good. Let's see what to say here. So, bit of a trip. I will point out, Cecelia mentioned plug share, and I use that a lot. And so this is just a snapshot of all the chargers, DC fast chargers for the non-Teslas, we'll call them that, from California and Oregon. And so what I was going to do, just take a second, I'll show you what we're doing here in a second.
Or those S80 or those Shadow or both?
Mostly CCS, but both, really. Yeah.
Most have both, in my experience.
I can't find one from Sneeze to send me a disco.
So this is a little thing. I'm planning a trip back from Portland, and we want to go to Corvallis, which they're showing. There's a speaker talking there. So I first pull up Google Maps, and it tells me that I have about 83 miles to go to get from Portland to Corvallis. And then I'll go over to, this is risky doing live demonstrations, but let me come over here, maybe it'll work. Okay, so then I go to PlugShare and I pull up Corvallis, and these are all these green, you can filter it over here on my computer. That's terrible. So all those green dots are level 2 chargers, and okay, let me just show you. You can filter it by the type of plug you need. So there's CCS, there's level 2, and if you want to look at all the other plugs, you can see if you want JADMO, if you have a leaf, or if you have supercharger, etc. So all I have here is just, I'm looking to see if there's a fast charger for my car, which is the CCS, and then the J1772. Let's see. And so I want to go to I'm looking around here and go, oh, let's see here, the parking structure, I'll tap on that. And this will pop up, and you'll see a little information about that charger. It's Blink, that's a company that does chargers, how much they charge. And I usually look to see that somebody's used it in recent times. So there's Vagabond, recently. They're all successfully using it. So that's a good sign. It tells you how many are there and so forth. So since we're going to go there for an evening thing for several hours, I'll want to plug in there somewhere. And that's just a real quick demo of, sorry, I'm going off here for a second. But that's PlugShare.
And it does tell you if they're currently being used or not.
Yeah, that's true. So you want to know if there's somebody parked there already, and not all of them do. Not all of them are networked, but it does give you a little insight. And you always see if there's a plan B. Ideally, there would have been a fast charger in that area, but there wasn't. So I'm going to hope to get some couple-hour charging.
Google Maps had announced last month that with their updated version, they'll have the same ability and the filtering available. But they won't probably know whether somebody's using it.
Yeah, right.
PlugShare's pretty good.
Sorry about this. Okay. Continue on. So, I'm in Portland. This is, you get to Portland, and there's not that many fast chargers, but Portland General Electric has Electric Avenue. They got some fast chargers there. And, you asked how much it costs. In this particular one, it's $5. Flat rate, regardless if you're parked there for an hour or two or 5 minutes. So I go there, it's a good price, and it's quick. So this was another one. We stopped and visited a friend in Eugene. We spent the night. I look around on PlugShare, see what sort of level 2 charges. She didn't have an outlet for this 220 volt charger, so we went and found one of these level 2 chargers. So this will give me a pretty good charge, 4 to 8 hours. We're going to be there overnight, and you sort of look around and find a charger. So that's how that worked.
And Tor, on level 2, do you find you pick up about 25 miles of range in an hour? Is that on level 2?
Don't make me do math right now. So maybe.
I thought you got an 80% charge in 45 minutes.
That's in the fast chargers.
On the fast charger, but if you're zipping down, you can get 80% charge in 45.
On the DC fast chargers, not at level 2. Level 2 is 220, your home charge. You can't get 80% in an hour on this. This is more the 5 to 8 hours.
Can you get it on any out there, where you just plug it in?
Yeah, the fast DC fast charger. We're talking acronyms here, but I'll show you another one. That was this one here. That one you can get 80% in an hour or a little thereabouts.
So what is the bulk of this thing about, when you're charging, it gives you an option, say 40% fast, and then the rest, why does it do that?
I don't know, hang on that one. So, I'm realizing I'm gonna get derailed here real quick. So this was interesting. So Electrify America is this company that Volkswagen had because of some settlement money that, they cheated on those emissions, that story. Billions of dollars have to go into electric charging stations, and they're probably one of the best charging networks being installed right now, mostly on the West Coast for the non-Teslas. And we drove up in Albany, and these guys were working on it. I'm like, and I sat and picked their brain for half an hour while it was pretty cool. One of the cool things I learned from them was whoever's running Electrify America, I guess VW, is hiring these guys to make sure there's preventative maintenance, that the stations work. Because we have run into, a stretch of charge points that were out for weeks. So that's not a confidence builder, but I think by having these guys model how to maintain a charging network, it shows the others that can step up. So that was just kind of cute. I don't know, 2 bolts came together. Anyway, this was kind of funny. So we drove. So this is not Portland. This is down in LA, and we were going to stay at this hotel when we got down there, and I saw there was a mall across the way that had a bunch of level 2 chargers in the parking garage. I thought, okay, we'll just get down there at 10 o'clock, we'll plug in, I'll get it in the morning. So we drive up to one of those and it says maximum 2 hours or 4 hours. And I'm the guy that goes, yeah, whatever, we'll do it. And my wife goes, no, I don't want to get towed, she's the voice of reason. So we went, and then in the morning, there was one of these fast chargers. This is EVgo, which is another brand. And we just went over there, plugged it in, and went and had breakfast for an hour, and then we were ready to go do whatever we needed to do around LA for a few days. So that's the nice balancing act of the fast chargers versus the level 2 chargers. So we got 2 of these level 2 chargers with Sonoma Clean Power's incentive a couple years ago. You could do that then. Now you can only get 1. We got one that was portable, thinking that we might camp, and charge up, or stay at a friend's house, like Cecelia said, and plug into their dryer or something like that. The dryer thing hasn't materialized yet because the distance is an issue, and I think nobody's had an electric dryer that we've stayed with, strangely enough. I don't know. Anyway, so this last trip we went up the coast and stayed in Crescent City, and to the point about calling ahead to make a reservation, we called ahead about an hour in advance to make sure they could do it, because it was on PlugShare, but no one had really chimed in a while. But yeah, we camped, and back here is the cord, and we dragged that along. We finally put it to use. So you got to camp with an RV setup. We proved you could do it. So overnight, in the morning, we were fully charged and ready to go. So, okay, so this is kind of you plan for plan A, and then there's plan B and plan C. So we were in Portland, we're trying to go back, and I learned that all the charge points from the Oregon border to Davis were down on that stretch. The fast chargers. Like, what the hell? We'll get to it in a week or a couple of weeks. Well, that doesn't help me. So, okay, what's plan B? Okay, I find this hotel that has a charger, a level 2 charger. Okay, we'll make it down there. We'll check in around midnight. It's probably what I estimated. And in the morning, we'll be ready to go and ready to go get home. So this was in Anderson. It's just you can get home from there on a full charge. And so the day before I called the hotel and they said, "Oh, what?" And so, is there somebody else that I can talk to? Yeah, call back tomorrow. So I called back, and the same girl answered, and she says, "Oh yeah, I found it. Yeah, you're good to go." So we got down there at midnight, and the guy on duty couldn't get the code to work. So we're like, oh crap. So we got 20 miles left on the battery. Midnight. What are we gonna do? Okay. Plan C was 10 miles down the road behind the hospital, whatever town this was. They had 4 electric chargers that we plugged in, and we slept in the car. So you can sleep in the car. I got like 4 or 5 hours. And up here it shows we were plugged in for 6 hours, 6.5 hours, and how many kilowatt hours we got. What was kind of cool was as the morning, sunrise started coming up, there was all these electric cars coming and people coming to work and diversity of cars, and I'm like, oh, this is a hustling, bustling EV community. So anyway, it was you know, I don't think you'd have to do this, but we proved to ourselves we can do it, you know, so.
Well, it's got heated seats.
Yeah.
Phil's got heated seats. Yeah, I just tilted back. My wife crawled in the back. I don't know how she got back there, but anyway. So then we're coming back, and you cut through Clear Lake from Williams, I think it is, on I-5. And we get some regenerative braking in there because of the hills and stuff, which is kind of fun. You actually put energy back into your battery. But then I'm like, oh, I need a little charge to get home. And so there's a couple of found on PlugShare, a couple of wineries in Calistoga. This one, Chateau Montelieu, where Bottle Shock was filmed, if you know that story. And we pulled over in there for half an hour, got a little bit of a charge, took a tour around their gardens, and then made it home okay. So, this is a little, and the different companies give you different feedback as far as your charging experience. This one's from ChargePoint. I like how they do it, because this shows how, it starts out pretty good and then it goes down as it fills up. And by the Bolt can only handle 50 kilowatts, which is the speed at which power is delivered. The Tesla can handle 100 kilowatts or more, so that's the speed of it. There's a little envious there, but such as it is. So far, I would say what we did first to test before we took a road trip of that caliber was we went over to Lucky's here in Sebastopol and tried out the EVgo fast charger. We downloaded the apps that were needed. EVgo, ChargePoint, Electrify America are sort of the big ones. They have a little card. I remember going to this charger in San Francisco near the Moscone Center, and they said, it had a little sign, wave your card at it. And I was just waving my credit card at it, not knowing that you have to have a special card. So we didn't do anything. But these cards, they recognize you and they turn it on, activate it.
And they just charge your credit card.
Yeah.
Just, right.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
But whereas with a Tesla, the beauty of it is you just drive up and plug in and it recognizes who you are. It's like, hi Cecelia, let's charge, so pretty elegant. We're getting there for everybody else. There's a protocol out there so that you can plug and play at some point. We're trying to try to charge up to about 80% of capacity, and then I always try to find a location that there's two options. You see the Tesla charging set, there's like 12 plugs, and for everybody else, there's DC fast charger, there's 2 spots, and so hopefully they'll build out those as more use.
Do you know if they make a CCS adapter for supercharger Tesla?
Black market. No, I don't know yet.
Online.
You buy it online? No, not yet.
Teslas can use other chargers.
Yeah, it works that way, but not the other way.
Yeah, the reason the new adapter that you can use is $4,000.
No, seriously.
From hacker.com. All right, so then if you're going to stop somewhere for a few, 3-4 hours, it's great to use a level 2 charger. They're cheaper and they're a little, so if you don't have, that's like the Eugene or a couple other places where we showed that. And our electric charging, I took meticulous notes on and the prices vary, but overall on the whole trip, we paid about half of what we calculated we'd spend on gas. So that's on the road trip. So the other thing is yes, you need a smartphone for these things. You can't wave cash at it. There's no one there to activate it. PlugShare has been great. I think I said all that other stuff. And then if I said, if I start out, Bolts estimate you how far you can go. So it's like, 240 or 250 miles. Don't count on that, because you get out on the highway and it's sort of a little rougher driving, and that range starts to evaporate. Although recently we were up in Soda Springs and we had about 100 miles on that estimation, and we're trying to get to Arcade in West Sacramento, and that's 96 miles, and I had 4 miles of, but I gained 70 miles in regenerative braking going down the hills. It was not doing anything special, it was just kind of how that works. If you're going downhill,
If you're going up.
you expend a little more. So,
A lot more.
but yeah, it's sort of a game. But I will say that we look at it as our trip vehicle now. You know, where a lot of times like a vehicle, oh, it's just your neighborhood car. I think having a car that can go over 200-mile range is key to that. And we've learned how to use it. And the charging network, yes, it's still a little messy, but there's the tools there to take a trip. I think Linda advised her how to get to Tucson, and she made it. She made it back. So there you go. And there's always an outlet somewhere. So if the winds are not blowing, there's no DC fast charger, no level 2, you can knock on somebody's door and say, hey friend, can I park in your driveway for a day? Anyway. So this is a little lesson. I go to Sacramento occasionally to SMUD, and they have a level 2 charger that's free in their parking lot. So I'll hope that it's available and plug in, and that'll give me enough to get back home, a little boost, a little cushion. But if it's not, you know, they have a fast charger right across the highway and one over here. I can go, you know, look for that backup kind of thing. Anyway, that's kind of a tip. I just want to show you this. This is filtering plug share for all the Tesla supercharger nodes that are scattered around the country. And you can zoom in and see. I mean, I would love to pick the brain of whoever at Tesla is there to that, you know, maps all this out and decides where charging stations go. But very impressed. I'm glad they're doing it, and yeah. So it shows a model for everybody else, I think. This is just kind of cool. They're like combining solar and they're putting batteries on there so that they can manage the variable cost of electric utility power. They're just kind of pushing the limit. So, and modeling what we all can be, you know, see happening. So
That last photo, that's in Sebastopol?
No.
question mark. Could it be?
Oh, where is it? I'm sorry.
It's dreamy.
Oh,
Fantasizing.
Okay.
The question mark. No, that's. I don't know where that is actually, but it might just be a artist rendering for what's coming. So now, our situation was our lease, we had a 3-year lease, it's coming due at the end of summer. You know, it's like renting a car full time, so I'm still getting used to that idea, but we're gonna have to turn it in or buy it out. It's kind of a pricey buyout. Or extend the lease, negotiate for I'm told you can't negotiate, they'll just tell you what the terms are. But if I'm gonna buy another one, there's this tool here called plugstar.com, and you can go in there and see what's available and then sort it by your range, by price, by whatever you're most important to you. I sorted it for these 200-mile plus range ones. So the Bolt, the Kona, and the Model 3 are good candidates for us. And this talks about if you got a loan and what the monthly payment was, what's sort of a, you know. So this is kind of, these are some rough, numbers will vary once you go talk to the sales guy, of course, but this gives you a little comparison. And then this is if you leased it. So those were loans, which are longer term, and you own it at the end of the term. This is a lease that usually is 3 years, and what kind of monthly payments you have to pay. By the way, the Bolt that we're going to turn in here, because Sonoma Clean Power bought down the price of the lease, we're paying something like $230 a month, which the guy at the dealership, he says, yeah, every $1,000 on the lease, the price, it's like a $30 a month drop or something.
Can you still do that?
They are not doing that anymore, and they're shifting on infrastructure. Yes, Duran?
Used cars.
Correct. Used cars.
Used cars, for people who are worried about cost, maybe just want to mention the availability of used EVs on the market right now, which is exploding.
Yeah, and I would love to sort of dig into and share where people can go hunting for those, but
Actually, the dealers have, because I looked yesterday, Jim, I was going to find out what the cost was for a used Leaf, for instance, because
yeah.
to push the idea that people could get used EVs.
Yeah, I think we should dig up more on
I
that.
have
but-
one for sale, there's a flyer on the back table.
Oh, there you go.
It's a Leaf.
Okay.
It's the 2015, it has about 30,000 miles, and the range is upper 80s.
That might even be good. That's gonna, your value is gonna go up when I show you a couple slides coming down. Hang on. Okay, what's next? There's another cost calculator. PG&E has a website with a cost calculator as well, or available cards, and they, this one. Again, I'm going to share this with you, but so don't sweat this. Then we were talking with somebody the other day. She says, "Oh, I got a plug-in hybrid. I wasn't sure about the electric because of, the power outages that are happening, and how am I going to charge my car, And I said, well, you know what I did that Saturday last October when everybody was in line at the gas station? I went home and plugged in. It took me a minute. Then I sort of packed a few things and got ready. And so I was fully charged when the power went out that night. And I migrated to someone else's house where they didn't have to evacuate. And then we all had to evacuate, and I drove down to my sister's house in Concord with my 110 charger and just plugged it into her wall for a couple days. So I don't know, I think it's sort of a misconception that, electric, you're going to be stuck. You don't need to go get a generator and charge it. I don't think that's the solution. But I just want to make a point on that I thought it was a benefit to have an electric car on this case.
Somebody pointed out the gas pumps don't work when the electricity goes out.
Yeah, so not a fail-safe solution. So, okay, so this is this thing called vehicle to home, and the Leafs, the Nissans in particular, have been doing this for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Don't pin me down for exactly when, but basically the idea is that your car can also power your home. And right, so what about why not here? So I'm digging because there's a lot of interest in buying. If you have solar, you put a battery on so you have backup power instead of buying a generator. Well, I already invested in this electric car. They're doing it in Japan. What about California? So somebody said this company here, I don't know how to pronounce it, OSSIACO or something, and they have this device that it replaces your, let me see if I have it replaces your inverter if you have solar, so it does the inverting up to 10 kilowatts. It's actually a faster level 2 charger, the supercharger thing. And then it allows the car to power your house in the event of a blackout. So, website's pretty impressive. I'm not the first guy to test out things. I would love to have it tested out locally. And then somewhere in there, the Nissan Leafs, they're the ones that have this protocol, that Chatamo protocol that was talked about. It's bidirectional by nature, whereas the Teslas and the other CCS it's a question whether
The CCS does it too.
it does not do it.
No, it will do it.
It will do
The
it.
protocol for both is the same, the electrical connections are different.
Okay, so there's hope that, but I was suggesting that a used Nissan Leaf is probably cheaper than buying a Tesla Powerwall,
Yeah.
and you have a second car, so,
This station actually charge the car in AC, or does it charge it in DC? It uses,
yes.
which connector does it?
Well,
Right?
hey now, come on. Well, there's 2 plugs here, so I'm not sure. You're gonna have to look at their specs.
It's probably DC at a lower current.
Okay, I don't know, but they have some great stuff on their website. Keep adding more stuff. I'm trying to get the local dealer to come and talk to me, but more to look at, more to learn.
I got a response from a company in China too that delivers here in California, the same kind of thing, and then I didn't make it to the meeting, but you did to the EAA meeting, and there was another one which was offering a deal for $1,000.
You mean the one that was at the last
Yeah,
NBA?
that one doesn't charge your car, but
That's
that
something
one,
else.
you pull you should explain how much power is in your car compared to what you need for your house.
Right, so, okay, so it's measured in kilowatt hours. The Bolt has 60 kilowatt hour battery. A typical house might be 15 kilowatt hour, 15 to 20 kilowatt hours a day, running full mode, kinda. So technically that could run 3 days. But this, what I also want to confirm is that you can still charge via your solar system. Will continuously charge your car, or is that price shut off when the power goes down?
You know, I took the PG&E classes.
They don't talk about that.
They don't talk about it, and I even talked to some of the installers here for storage.
And they don't know.
Solar, they don't want to talk about it.
They don't know.
Well, the reason that it's complicated is because the switches that are required to protect the lines.
Well, we're getting close. So, can't run out and buy this yet, even though Sonoma Clean Power might have it in their online store. Don't buy it just yet, but it's a taste of, I would love to try it out. I have 3 or 4 people that would love to try it out, test it, and share it out. So, we'll see. I mean, imagine if instead of running out and getting generators for everybody prepping for the next fire and power outage, that we invested in this kind of technology and
If
capability.
you look at it from a cost, this is the part that was hard for me. If you look at it from a cost point of view, I got a quote for the storage for my house at 15 kilowatt hours. It came at about $40,000.
Right.
Okay, but the
You're already
car
driving
costs
around a battery. Let's
$40,000,
use
I've
it.
got more storage than that.
Right.
Yes. All right. So I think that's all I want to say about the vehicle to home thing. But there's more to explore there. Let's just say that. So then this is about building infrastructure. This is a group organized by the California Energy Commission and run by CSE, which is a Center for Sustainable Energy out of San Diego. They do a lot of statewide management of projects. Because I was looking at all these fast chargers and it seemed like no one's in charge. Pun intended. No one's in charge. Anyway, and I'm still learning more. But I would love to imagine there's someone in charge, because there's different incentive programs from this PG&E and Sonoma Power and this group and that group for chargers for this demographic and that demographic, and I'm like, is anybody working together? I don't know. So I'm starting to feel like, yes, there is some collaboration. So let's talk about Sebastopol. This is what's available in public charging stations right now. There's a DC fast charger at Lucky's for the Bolts. It's not, and the Chatamo. And I guess Tesla can use that with their adapter. And then these are just level 2 chargers at the theater, and then what's that one? CVS, and that's over behind, next to the that center.
CVS is free.
What's that? That one's
CVS is free.
free, so there's a line there. No. There's sharing protocols that need to happen too, but, so not that many.
Which one's the cheapest?
I don't know, I don't use them. I polled you guys, some of you that have EVs, I said, do you mostly charge at home? You said, yeah. I mostly charge at home. So there's some people that don't have off-street parking or charging capability, and that's where they might scramble and find those things. So I don't know, I was just digging around, like, who's working on mapping this out? And this is a report from the Regional Climate Protection Authority. I think that's what RCPA stands for. And they have this thing called Shift Sonoma. It's this idea about electrifying transportation, and they, together with PG&E, did this analysis of where there might be a need for stations going forward as more and more electric cars come online. So this is just to show you that's kind of it. They've done some analysis. I don't know fully how to interpret it, but I would like to see some more DC fast chargers in town, because we had a lot of tourists coming to town, and it's like, charge up while you go look around or whatever. So,
Sure. Our county already put in 25 chargers at the sheriff's department. Terra Linda, so you get off at Smith Ranch Road and you go to the Commons building there where the SO is now. There are 26 level 2 chargers in there.
so if you get Yeah, why would you go there anyway? But just good to know.
It's free parking, and the chargers were free for the first 2 weeks they were operating, so.
Not many of those anymore. I mean, I'm in favor of paying because if it means that the charger will be maintained. There's a lot of dead chargers out there from yesteryear, because when they were all grant paid and then people forgot to maintain them.
What's the one by the theater? It's a.
Charge
Charge
point. Yeah,
But it's a level 2.
It's a level
not
2.
fast charge.
it's a level 2.
And they do charge for parking there, apparently. And that's a city lot, too.
Well, then there's nuances like they have to have a handicap spot that you have to be both handicapped and need an EV. So things to think about.
So then really the only fast charger is the one at Lucky's.
Yeah.
But if you, so I went and leased a Leaf, and what came along with the Leaf was 3 years worth of charging for free.
At EV Go, right?
And EV Go, actually it wasn't EV Go, it was 3 or 4 different, it's different places. But the one at Lucky's is free.
Yeah.
And so.
If you have a Leaf.
It's free.
Free for a lease.
And
For a
it comes with
Leaf.
the car.
If you buy a new Leaf.
But don't say, I think basically, there's nothing too free about any of this stuff right now, but don't get hung up on that. But I mean, the idea that we strategically need some more chargers, you know, what if, do we put them at the schools, do we put them here or there? That's a conversation that, you know, could be explored.
We're supposed to have one at the school. Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Frito High School.
So this is just, I think I put this slide in here just to show you that people are thinking about this and doing some fancy analysis, and I won't, these little zones are just high traffic zones and in need of more chargers. I wish I could drill down and figure out, talk to whoever did this analysis to get a little interpretation, but I just put that there to show you that it's being thought about. And then this one's through PG&E. They have a incentive program for those that have fleets who might be shifting to electric fleets and need charging infrastructure. So they'll help pay for the charging infrastructure. Say UPS or Amazon, I think, is talking about this, you know, wants a charging infrastructure for all their trucks or vehicles that are all happen to be electric when those come around, that they'll help pay for that.
Guayaquil here in Sebastopol bought 60 volts, cleared out the inside of them, and they're using them for their distribution.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they're the first, really, for a.
So that's an example of they could take advantage of this. If they needed a bunch of chargers, PG&E would help pay for that.
I don't know where they store them.
Then this is a story out at 2 Acre Woods, and you know, the little, it's kind of a co-housing space. Some of you know that place. They got some incentive money to help pay for the electrical trench, you know, adding more capacity to their carports so they could put car chargers and level 2 chargers at each car stall. And so that kind of money is available here and there for multifamily homes situations.
Workplaces.
And they got money from this one. It was PG&E's charge, but it says the program's full. So I would love to drill down. It's like, where are those, you know, is there projects happening here in town that I don't know about? But and then Sonoma Clean Power is still offering basically free. They have it make you jump through a few hoops, but you pay for the shipping and the sales tax on what is about a $600 item. So that's still live. That's active.
The portable one then too for this stuff?
You can choose, but you can only get one, incentive for one. So do you want it portable? I mean, we could have wired a plug on our house to just take the charger with us when we go on a trip. Well, I didn't do that, so. So here's a couple of interesting projects that are happening with Electrify America. They have, they have a big pot of money that they have to spend. And in Sacramento in particular, they're trying these various innovative sort of use of cars. So the one is a car share where kind of like Zipcar or City Car, one of those programs where The cars kind of float around, park, and you just become a member, and you can pick it up and use it. You have a membership fee, subscription. This other one, and that's called Gig, and then the Envoy one is, say for example, the Burbank housing over here had a few of these there for residents to use, to share. You'd have a stall of them to check out instead of everybody having their own. Interesting idea. A lot of times cars just sit there unused, and it's okay to share. So these are programs that are being tested out and tried out in Sacramento, and I put this there just as is that something we can learn from? Is it something that we could apply here in Sebastopol? The other one is buses. There's a bus service between Sacramento City and Davis with electric buses, and something about this on-demand electrical shuttle service. How that works exactly, I'm not sure, but that's sort of a question around here when you see Route 24 drive around empty, or maybe it should be on demand. Who knows? So things to think about. Just some ideas for policy. I know I was in Norway recently, and the relatives were sharing that the toll to get in and out of Oslo is dramatically reduced if it's an electric car. So that almost help pay for their electric car by the amount of savings they get from not. So is that something for San Francisco, like where the toll bridges are, to incentivize electric cars through reduced tolls? And then this friend worked at JPL in Pasadena was telling me about how the company had an incentive for carpooling, and that you could pool your carpool credits, and if somebody was driving an electric car, then they got extra credit for being an electric car, and there was a charger there, and so the guy with the electric car was the one that drove, and he got the other people's credits. And it was a little bit of money making to drive to work electric, and you have to charge it at work. Details, I have to go back and find that out, but that was an interesting story. Don't know about that last one. So, I read about this electric concierge thing down in Palo Alto. I'll share about that in a second. And then, just should we advise the city or whoever's in charge of all this, figuring out who that is, where to put DC fast chargers or other chargers? And also this Drive Electric event, and I'll have a slide on that in a second. I would love to poll all the people driving electric cars to learn more about their experience, but that's something. And so this is a Plug-in America is a sort of great resource to visit their website, and if we, for example, hosted a Drive Electric Earth Day event, they'd send all kinds of banners and whatever support material we needed to showcase for cars and let people. I don't know about test driving, that's sort of a dealer thing perhaps. But that's a thought. And this was the electric concierge. What if you have questions? Who can you talk to? So this group, Actera down in Palo Alto, has a couple people that signed up and say, yeah, I'll be available. People can consult with me or ask about costs and things and navigate all the questions you have about connectors and things like that. So, and purchasing, leasing, I didn't get into the details of that, but a concierge might do that. Is that a role for somebody here in Sebastopol? And then, shout out that we have one of the few all electric buses here in Sebastopol. The Sonoma County Transit, Route 24. There's two. One's all natural gas driven, and this one's all electric. It was offline for a little bit because they couldn't get the doors to close. Nothing to do with the battery, but it's back and touring around. So it's free.
That's a free bus.
He just cycles around. Just do it for fun. And then just a shout out to fairly local up in Mendocino, Steve Heckeroth started this company, Selectrac. They're trying to sell electric tractors for our ag community. There's a variety of models, and just mentioning that because they're trying to get some traction there.
Traction.
So yeah, I mean, so as a group, we're just curious, like, are there more cars? So there's, figure out some data, and then I'd love to push the industry to, especially these charging networks, to work together and get plug and play available and use, one card or one app for everything. Just make it a little easier. I mean, I showed you some of the adventure stories, and we don't mind it, but that's not for everybody. So, just making improvements. And then the used car thing, I would love to sort of develop that further, and the car share. All right, so now for questions. And if you don't mind, I'm going to pass the mic around. I'm recording this for... Yeah, so I can hear your question.
The question was going to be if you knew how long the talk tonight was going to be. So is that basically...
That's it, the talk. Now we're going to...
And now we're...
Having questions. So we're like, how much longer do we have to be here? Sorry.
I have a question. So I'm curious about the batteries. How long do the batteries last in each car, and do they recycle them, or do they throw them away, or are they toxic? What's the deal with batteries?
That's a good question.
You want me to answer?
Well, my answer is, they're lithium based. Then there's various chemistries of lithium. Not to get into all that just now, but some of the Tesla vehicles are lasting 150,000 miles and
More.
or more.
More. There's
more.
one company down south that's been driving them like crazy, 300 to 500,000 miles.
Okay.
And we're seeing virtually no degradation whatsoever.
Without 200,000 to 300,000 miles without. So that's sort of proving out that they've got long life for the Teslas. The others don't have as much history. And I think overall there's need for development of recycling of lithium batteries. We don't have that in place. Lead acid batteries for cars, that's a common thing to recycle those. We don't have in place today a lithium recycling.
Sorry,
We
there's
do.
there's a whole industry being built around recycling.
Being built.
Being built and already is. They have been recycling and the materials are all recovered.
So James, let's take a note to learn more about
So nothing's
that.
wasted.
No,
Good.
it all comes back out again. It's a question of how much cost and how fast you do it. When Nissan put their first Leaf out, they had already developed a secondary market for stationary use of the batteries, and then they also were building a recycling plant, and Honda's built a recycling plant as well. Companies like Eaton have been doing it as well.
Okay, so
Send your battery.
that's a common question. I would love to sort of get current information on that because I don't have a good answer. So.
And for the Leafs at least, the batteries are warranted by the company for 100,000 miles or 10 years, whichever comes first.
I'm
Is
just
it
more
10 years?
concerned about what happens to the
And the
battery.
bolts as
Yeah.
well.
In 10 years, when the batteries, what are you going to do with them all?
Well, he talked about recycling.
Yeah, you talked about recycling. That doesn't mean there's anything set up.
No, it's emerging, and what Jerry just shared was that they're developing that, and we hope to learn more about that. It's not something to ignore, obviously, because it's a big thing.
It's really irresponsible to be...
But
Making something that can't be
It
recycled.
sound like an electric car is
No, none of the batteries are being dumped.
Not looking to certain things.
Wait, listen for a second. None of the batteries are being dumped because the materials in the batteries are valuable, and it costs less to recycle the materials out of the batteries than get virgin materials. That's not normally the case with paper, for instance, but in the case of batteries, it is.
But
So-
the electric cars are new, so I don't know how many batteries have had to be recycled so far.
Well, there's over 1 million electric cars on the road today, and Volkswagen announced by 2025, 1/5 of all the vehicles that they sell will be electric.
So
it's a large industry.
I would just say
before you would go to one, you would want to have answers to all these things and know that if all these billions of cars in the world switch to electric cars, are there any problems with that?
It's a story that we just need to explore about. But I would just say, not only batteries for cars, but we're building batteries for homes.
I know, you're building batteries for everything. Is
So-
that a good idea?
Well,
Where does it come from? Is there toxins?
there's different kinds of batteries, and I think everything has an impact, but
To get rid of the batteries, all these stations they're putting up, do you think electricity is endless? And you can have as much electricity as you want?
it depends on how you get it.
You grew up with, you just plug it in and, you know, it's endless. We can have all the electricity we want.
So are you suggesting we don't do it, or stick with what we got?
I'm suggesting you better think, we all better think about what we're doing before we all run into this. Let's get an electric car, that'll solve all our problems.
Well, it's a battery question, and I think we had dealt with it a little bit. So, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a question.
So what? What is that supposed to mean? You don't even know what solar panels are gonna end up. Those are new too. What are they made of? How many toxins are in those solar panels?
First solar panel
What
was
does it
done in
take to make them? What are you
1830.
gonna do when
They're not
they're
that
no
new.
good anymore and you wanna get rid of them?
Well, I'm taking your questions, and we're gonna jot them down and do a whole section on recycling of materials, but we have hit 8:30. You're welcome to go, but I'm sure there's a few more questions, and we'll go another 5 minutes. And did you have something?
I have noticed, I'm old, and I've noticed since the weather, when I'm holding a charge much better. Is that true?
When it's cooler?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I heard a friend say that she goes further when it's warmer. Yeah.
When it's warmer.
Yeah, cold warmer.
She noticed the opposite. Because I have relatives that say, oh, tour's not going to work up to the North Pole, you know, or whatever. I'm like, because the range goes down. I'm like, okay then. But, so